I don't really usually sip alcohol, and so, and I do everything fast. Like when I first got out of high school and I was going to school and I was living in like southern Ohio. I hung out with my uncle a lot, who used to be in the Navy, and this guy, like, you would go out to breakfast with him, you'd be having a conversation, talking. As soon as that plate hit the table, he didn't say a word. He scarfed his food down, and then he was like, all right, you ready? And so that's not to that extreme, but that's just kind of how. So like we go out to him like, all right, let's, eat and do our thing and get out of here. And I remember one of the first times that we came to A Mano, Alex came out and brought like a shot of limoncello. He was like, this is good for settling, this is good for slowing things down. So I've always been aware of it. But so I usually don't get cocktails because I like to drink and I don't want to get hammered while I'm sitting there. And also usually at some places a cocktail is $20. So I'm not going to sit there and have 4 cocktails and spend almost $100 on 4 drinks. But the beer prices there were pretty much like $1 less than the cocktail. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get a cocktail.
If there's a place to drink cocktails, I feel like that's the place.
Yeah, for sure. I have been really, and I guess that kind of scratched the itch, but I've really been craving just like a good steak and bourbon lately. Like
together or just
yes, together. Like go to like a old school steakhouse, get a big steak, have a couple bourbons, and that sort of scratched that itch, but not really. And I don't know where to go around here to get those two
around
things.
Here, no. But I think of this place in Jersey, because I'm from Philly. So I think of this place in Jersey that has this window, and they have these giant cuts of steak. Like huge like primal cuts of steak, and you show them how big you want.
Yeah.
And they cut it right there for you.
Wow.
And then they cook it for you. And that's basically what they do. You just get meat, maybe potato, maybe some salad, but that's all you eat, and it's phenomenal.
There was a place in Texas I went to once when I lived there, and I forget the name of it. It was like down a dirt road. It looked like an old saloon. But it was a steakhouse, and it was on like kind of that thick plasticky plates, that was like their, what they serve the food on. And you ordered at a window inside, and they had this steak for 2 that was a 64-ounce steak and 2 baked potatoes and 2 salads and, 2 something else for like $60.
Oh, wow.
And it was like around the time that I had only been living in Texas for like 3 months. And the girl that I was dating at the time, we went, it was like her friend's anniversary or something like that. And they were all redneck cowboys. And that was like the fancy place to go to eat.
And they could eat all of that?
Then they, like every couple got that, to split. And yeah, that's pretty much what that reminds me of when you say you cut it however thick you want.
Yeah. I don't know if I could eat that much meat anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to be so good at that. I mean, I just grew up in a family. My dad was just huge cuts of meat, maybe some sides, but he didn't care about them. Huge cuts of meat and chilies. Any kind of chili. And
really?
that was our meal.
Yeah. So you grew up in Philly?
I grew up in Philly.
Were your parents cooks or in the industry or?
So my dad was not in the industry. He owned a mortgage company.
Okay.
But he is, and I hate this word, but he's definitely a foodie.
Yeah.
And he was a foodie when foodie wasn't a word yet.
Okay.
And he taught us that. I mean, my first adult food was sushi.
Really?
When I was maybe not even 1. They would tell me stories about them bringing my sister and I to sushi places, and they'd put us in high chairs. And adults, it wasn't even popular for like adults to eat it yet in like the 80s. It wasn't big yet. And they're like, everyone would just give us looks. You have this child eating eating sushi. Like this is weird for us to try this.
Like because it was so bougie.
It
Or?
was it was new. I mean, people weren't used to it yet. And then my mom's also that way, but she owned a cheese shop at some point before I was born, and then she sold it when she was having my sister, who's older. So she owned a cheese shop, and they did catering in Jersey before they moved to Philly.
Okay.
And they had us. And I grew up in Center City, and then we moved out to the suburbs, like 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
10-minute drive without traffic.
Okay.
Maybe 40 minutes.
In the downtown.
Yeah. And yeah. Then my dad moved back into Center City at some point.
Okay.
So in and out of Philly.
Yeah.
Definitely a Philly girl, though.
Yeah. I've only been to Philly once, and I was there for like a job and for an afternoon conference. Like flew in at 2, conference was at 5, flew out the next morning.
So you really need to experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, are you? I don't know if are you coming with us?
Oh, I'm coming.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Oh, I'm coming. That's my town. I mean, it is Alex's now because
Yeah.
he's definitely been adopted by Philly.
Yeah.
And he's adopted it as his home, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But no, that's my place.
I don't know. We may have to like stay the night and fly back the next day. Maybe I don't
Maybe.
know.
I mean, driving is also. I mean, it's only 4 hours.
Yeah. That's true. We're doing that with on February 2nd. I'm going to New Haven with Nick from Toss and Fire Pizza because he's originally from there.
Oh, okay.
And or Milford, Connecticut, something like that, something near there. So we're going to like Pepe's and Sammy's, a couple other places around there, but we're driving. So, and it's I don't know, it's strange. Like when I went to Chicago with Tim, I was worried that, I mean, I know Tim, like I hang out with him, like we do some video projects with him, but I don't hang out with him outside of like Eat Local or Buried Acorn stuff, but hang out with him there. And I was worried about being with him for 21 hours, not because it's him, but just, all right, I really don't know this person, but I'm going to be with you for a long ass time.
Yeah, but food is a great buffer.
It is, for sure. So anyway, so with Nick and I, we're driving to Connecticut. So maybe, I don't know. I was looking at flights, and I've got a ton of airline miles right now, and tickets aren't really that expensive. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, flying out of Philly is never really that expensive. Although I found it's much more expensive flying out of Syracuse to go anywhere.
Oh, than Philly?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, for some of these smaller airports, it's always crazy expensive. Yeah. And oddly, it's so, I mean, maybe it's because it's Delta. There wasn't a direct flight to Philly.
Really?
Which I thought was kind of dumb. I also looked recently because I'm trying to get out to Buffalo a lot more often. And it's just a pain to be in the car for like 2.5 hours each way or 2 hours each way when I'm driving, because at least for the time being, if I have a client that's like, hey, I need you to respond to this comment or make this post, it's like, oh, I'm driving, I'll do it in a bit. So I was looking to see if there's a direct flight to Buffalo from Syracuse, and there's not.
It's probably, how close is it?
I mean, that flight would be like
15 minutes.
Yeah, like 30 minutes maybe. But there isn't. I could fly from Syracuse to Detroit and then to Buffalo. And the thing that sucks about the train schedule too is that doesn't leave Syracuse until noon or 1 p.m. every day to go to Buffalo. So then you kind of have to stay the night. So, or I could just suck it up and drive.
Rent a Tesla so you can just like.
Yeah, that's true. That's not a bad idea. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that trip. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have to go back to Philly the following month with Kyle from Danny's.
Yeah, it's going to do the cheesesteak thing?
Yeah, I think so. So
that should be fun. That should be filling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
take it easy.
Yeah, that's gonna be. Yeah, that'll be kind of like the pizza one, like with Tim.
Yeah,
you have a couple bites and then you're done. So, Yeah, it should be interesting.
You should do the South Philly taco when you're down there.
What's that?
For sure. So that is so on South Street. There's a place called so there's Jim's, Jim Steaks.
Yeah.
And then I just blanked on the pizza place because I do this all the time, even though I went there all the time and I lived a block from it. So there's this pizza place, and I'll remember the name in a second. And they have slices that are this big.
Okay. Yeah.
And you put the cheesesteak in it and then wrap it up like a taco. I don't eat it that way, but it's a thing.
That's hilarious. Kyle wants to do some sandwich down at the shop where it's like a cheesesteak with French fries and mozzarella sticks and chicken fingers inside of it.
Okay.
And I forget, he said that was some sort of a Philly thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, putting French fries in sandwiches is just very street food thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can't hold
Carry
both of
both.
them.
Yeah.
So you just put it inside. They do a lot with gyros and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, all right, so you're living in Philly, living just outside of it. And when did you start to get into food?
So I went to, after high school, I went to college in New York City.
Okay.
Studied environmental science. Hated it.
Yeah.
Not what I was studying. I just, maybe moving to New York City was not the right move at the right time.
Did you go right out of high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I'd gone to boarding school, so I was already like away from home.
Okay.
But yeah, I went right to New York City, in Greenwich Village, then lived on the East Village. Went there for 2 years and left. I had no clue what I wanted to do at all. Went back home, and then I don't really actually remember what sparked the whole I want to try working in a restaurant thing. Probably just like the lifelong passion for food and just wanting to eat everything, so why not try and cook it, type of thing. So I actually asked, there's a local old school restaurant out in the suburbs that back in like its heyday, it was the restaurant, the only restaurant that like Philadelphians would like travel outside of Philly to go eat to.
Wow.
And I mean, by the time I worked there, that had died down a little bit, but it was still known. And I sort of knew the chef because I'd been going there to eat escargot for the longest time. So I asked him, I just walked into his restaurant one day and was like, can I come and just watch? I didn't even ask for a job. I said, can I come and watch? He was like, no. And I was like, okay. So I went back and asked him, can I come and watch? And then he sat me down and gave me the longest spiel about how the restaurant industry is horrible. And I should not at all want anything to do with it. And just gave me all these scenarios like, all right, you're going to be working until past midnight. Everyone's going to be hanging out. You're going to be meeting people at their party. They're all going to be drunk already. You're going to be just getting there, off from work, dirty, stinky. Do you really want anything to do with this? Yes, I do. So he was like, fine. You can come and work for, just watch. Watch for 3 days. It's like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Whatever you offer. I think after the first day, he offered me a job.
Wow.
Ended up working there for 2.5 years. And he said to me, you should go to the Culinary Institute of America. I was like, okay. He was like, well, if you don't apply, I'm going to apply for you.
What were you doing there at the restaurant?
I was a line cook.
Yeah.
I worked my way from, it was a really small kitchen.
Okay.
So I learned everything.
Was it like, what kind of food were they doing?
It was, he's going to hate me if he hears this, but it was very French. He was German, well, Austrian.
Okay.
And he always hated the French. But his food was very French.
Yeah.
So it was very French inspired. German dishes, schnitzel, red cabbage, that as well. Some American stuff, but very French inspired. I learned from the saucier how to make all like the French sauces. Learned everything there. Learned how to be a great owner because by then he was 70 something and he would scrub the floor if he needed to.
Wow.
He did everything.
Was it a big restaurant?
It was pretty big.
Yeah.
It was in an old inn.
Oh, cool.
And it was really, really dark inside. It's closed now.
Oh, okay.
He closed maybe about 5 years ago. And
well, do you remember his spiel? Besides the things you already said, you remember like everything that he said to you that night?
I remember a lot. Yeah.
Was it all true?
Yes. Absolutely. But I don't regret it.
Yeah. I've said it a few times on the podcast, but during like the height of the pandemic, we had I was making like pizza, trying to really make great pizza at home, and bought a baking steel, and I was so obsessed with it. I actually had the inventor of the baking steel on the
really?
podcast. Yeah.
Oh,
and
I follow him. I love him.
he did a phone interview with me, and we talked for like an hour. His name's Andrus Langsden, but I forget where they just moved to because their headquarters was out of Boston or just outside of Boston. I think he just moved to Texas or something like
really?
that.
Well, everyone's moving to Texas.
Yeah, they are. But anyway, so then I was trying to do sourdough, and I was like making my own butter and all this stupid COVID stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would post the pictures on Instagram all the time and Facebook. This old family friend, my dad had restaurants, and he's been in the industry forever. So this old family friend would always comment on them and say, "You've got to open a restaurant. You'd be so good at it. It's in your blood, da, 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 da." And it would piss me off. And I never wrote back, but I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I have yet to hear from one person who says, it's the best decision I ever made. I mean, people love it.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? There's a passion for it, but it's like an abusive relationship.
It is. And you always, just like an abusive relationship, you always want out. Like a little bit of you always wants out. But yet it draws you back.
But you keep coming back. Yeah.
And I got out for a little while. I worked on a farm for a couple of years. Actually, right before we moved up here.
Okay.
I worked on a farm. Just needed a break from it. Was going through that whole need to get out of this bad relationship kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was great. I mean, I learned a lot. And that's also helped me in the restaurant business as I've definitely come back into the restaurant business.
Yeah.
That was a good couple of years as well.
Was your first time coming back into it with you and Alex coming here? Yeah.
And that was, I mean, everything was a big change there. I mean, I moved all the way up here.
Yeah.
I didn't know for sure I was going to work full time at the restaurant.
Oh, really?
It was kind of up in the air when I moved up here. Mm-hmm. Obviously I had all the experience. I'd worked at Italian restaurants, making pastas, making breads, making all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, worked at the best Italian restaurant in Philly.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'll come and help you. I wasn't exactly sure. It's scary coming back to it. It was scary. I mean, I felt like I took a break for a reason, but it hooked me.
Yeah. Now, when did you two go to Italy?
So we went to Italy. Oh God, I don't remember what year. It's actually before I worked at the farm. So we opened up the restaurant here in 19. So we must have gone in 16,
okay.
2016 or so.
Yeah.
We went for 5 months.
5 months, okay.
And lived in a tent for most of those 5 months.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like you just made the decision to go one day, or was there like opportunity that came up?
Just things kind of fell into place. I had worked, just go back a little bit. So in Philly, I had worked for Mark Vetri.
Okay, yeah.
I'd worked through his restaurants. And then the last restaurant I worked at I was asked to work at Vetri. And I mean, that was a great opportunity for me. Plus I was asked to work there.
Yeah.
You're picked out of the whole company to work there. It was a great opportunity. It just wasn't at that point for me.
Yeah.
That specific restaurant. I think one of the chefs and the whole environment that was built there at that time wasn't what I wanted to be around.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was the time to leave. And then Alex he'd gone to work. He actually got out of working in a kitchen for a little while too. He didn't leave the restaurant, but he became a manager.
Oh, really?
Front of the house manager.
Really?
Yes.
I can't see Alex as a front of house manager.
He was a front of a house manager, and he was serving, like different shifts.
Yeah.
So he was bringing in money.
Yeah.
So he saved up a lot of money. So between me wanting to leave my job and the money we had saved up, it just fell into place to go to Italy. It seemed like a lot of money, but when you're going somewhere for 5 months, you have to live in a tent. We had rented a car so we could get around.
Okay.
So that was a lot of money right there.
Yeah, for sure.
But we were able to go to little towns that we really wouldn't have been able to go to otherwise.
Yeah.
Like really small towns. And it wasn't just Italy. I mean, we spent definitely the most time in Italy.
Yeah.
Went to Germany, went to Prague, Spain.
Wow.
Austria. Austria is the cleanest city I've ever been.
I have a cousin who was a embassy guard in the Marines in Vienna for a year and a half, and yeah, he loved it.
Yeah, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I love Prague too.
Yeah.
I feel like that's someplace I could really live.
Do you ever want to go back?
Yeah, sometimes I say maybe we should just pack up all our animals and our plants and just. But it just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Especially family here. It's a hard move.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was just hanging out with my brother down in. They live in Rockland County, so just outside, like maybe 30 minutes outside of New York City, and he's married with 4 kids, and he was in San Diego over the summer, and I used to live in San Diego for about a month. Outside of like Hawaii, San Diego is like one of my favorite places I've ever been, at least like in the States. And I would love to live there. But it's a lot different when you're 35 and, I'd love to live there one day, because that one day is slipping away pretty quickly versus when you're 25, 26 or younger, where it's like, I'm going to go there for a year. That doesn't really happen anymore as you get older.
A lot more things to pack in your U-Haul.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. So what's it like? There's a lot more, I'm sure, in between that and today that I want to talk to you about. But what's it like when you're in a restaurant, like this, like A Mano? Like, what's the goal? Is there a goal? Is there is there a finish line? Is it one day
That's a good question.
One day I want to, I know.
Oh no. That's a big question.
I'm like, if I'm a starting line and finish line, person. I can see exactly how to get something started. I can see where it could go, and all the stuff in between I struggle with. And so, but I realize that's kind of maybe a dumb question to ask.
No, it's good. It's making me think, because I think I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I think I love the in-between.
Really?
Yeah, and I just love new things too.
Yeah.
Kind of always been that way. Like ever since I was a kid, just anything new. I mean, I always knew like I would grow from doing anything new or learn something from something new, and it would make me better, or make me, I don't know. So always that in between for me is
Yeah.
the most important, maybe the most fun, and I'll see where the ending whenever I see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not that like I don't have plans, but I mean, I guess my plan's always been a restaurant, but like mine, you know, Mano's great. And of course it's like a baby of all of ours, because this is a family,
Right.
it's a family run business. But it's like a family baby. It's not my baby, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's like a mixture of everybody.
Right.
It's like this weird mesh,
Yeah.
which is great because we've all learned like so much about each other, and like about, you know, learning to compromise, and, you know, learning, you know, I haven't, just moving up here and like opening up a business with your boyfriend's family. It's just crazy, right?
How long had you guys been? You have been together for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how long have I been up here? We've been open for a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
We've been together for 7.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. Wasn't like a couple months later.
No.
Yeah.
Plus the whole like being in, I mean, my mom always said, she's like, the fact that you guys were in Italy living in a tent for 5 months together, it's like adding like 4 years to your relationship.
Yeah.
Like,
Without a doubt.
a lot of people would come back, either like their relationship may be destroyed or something, but we came back stronger. So so maybe our relationship's 11 years old. I don't know.
Yeah. What is it? Bill Murray said, before you marry someone, you should travel around the world together, or something like that. I mean, any trip really, I think, will suffice.
Oh yeah. It doesn't have to be a 5-month trip in a tent.
In a tent. Yeah. My now wife and I went to New York City for, I think, 2 days, 1 night, after about 2 months of dating, and pretty much quickly realized exactly how we were both going to be for the rest of our, you know, relationship and lives, how that was going to work out. So,
It worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. Yeah. So really just a trip, but yeah, definitely Italy for 5 months, living in a tent's a different story.
Yeah.
So maybe your dream isn't, and I don't know if it's theirs, if it's the families as well, but probably not to one day have like 20 A Manos.
Probably not. I mean, also like things have, a lot has changed since we've been up here.
Yeah.
Anthony got sick from COVID, and I'm not sure what Noah's plan is either. Not sure if he's 100% in this business or not, or if he wants to open pizzeria place. I don't know. So
what was it like coming from, I'm sure it was a shock for both of you, but you know, you who's never lived in Syracuse, what was it like coming here, and the difference in the industries, like the restaurant industry from Philly to Syracuse?
I mean, it was for sure a big change. I mean, for many reasons. I mean, in Philly, I was definitely spoiled in where I was working, my coworkers, everyone I was working with was in the business for a career, and not a job. Where a lot of people in this business it's a job.
Yeah.
But in Philly, it's because it's such a food city. And there's always a zillion people in line to get your job. It's very competitive.
Really?
So if you're not at the top of what you're doing, and you slip up even a little bit, there's a zillion people right behind you ready to step in your place. So it creates a very different atmosphere.
I know it's different for you. I mean, it's not like I would arguably say you're probably not replaceable at A Mano, hopefully, right?
Not replaceable.
And but even still, what do you prefer? Do you prefer kind of like that as somebody who's in the industry working in the kitchen? Do you prefer the I better step things up because somebody might be taking my job next week? Or do you prefer more of like kind of the relaxed?
I prefer the very competitive.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not a competitive person. I kind of wish Noah was here right now because he might actually speak the truth. I'm a little crazy.
Yeah.
Not like I'm a great boss and I'm like a super nice person. I don't like yell unless
Right.
it's really needed, kind of the type of thing. I'm not like a lot of Philly chefs, but I'm crazy with myself. Like I push myself so hard. And I've always been that way.
Yeah.
I'm my own worst enemy. I torture myself because nothing's ever good enough. It's not a good way to be. But it worked for Philly. It worked being a line cook in Philly. It worked for me.
Are you that way just in the kitchen, or is it like other areas?
Probably too much in other areas too, but definitely the kitchen. And it works. I mean, it made me really good at what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it made this industry work for me. And probably why I keep coming back to it.
Yeah. Is that because there probably isn't like a perfect service.
No, nothing's ever perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not.
There's too many
And it
variables.
drives me insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, nothing's ever perfect. Things go wrong all the time. In the kitchen, you can hide it a little bit. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really strange. I guess I never really thought of it like until you just said, when you were saying Philly and there's a number of people in line waiting to take your job. I can't think of any restaurant in the area that I've ever talked to that even prior to the pandemic wasn't in desperate need of good help.
Yeah. That was a big struggle for us.
Yeah.
Opening, continue to be, but opening.
Yeah.
We've cut down on staff drastically, and I know everyone has because of COVID,
Right.
but we kind of also did it a little purposely because for us, like for Alex and I, we're so used to, I think, pushing ourselves to the limit that in some ways it's easier to do that than sometimes deal with maybe other people who can't. How do I put this?
No, I'm. There's not a lot of restaurants. There's maybe which restaurants in town can really demand. There's Eden, and there's St. Urban. And to a certain degree, I'd say maybe an Alto Cinco or Otro. Kasai. Other than that, no other restaurant comes to my mind that really demands a really highly skilled or educated or talented or original chef. Everything else can
there can't be more restaurants than that because there's just, it's not available.
You mean in our area or just right now because of the for staffing?
Both.
Both, yeah. I mean, there can't be more because like the consumers don't really demand it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's making me really sad.
I'm sorry.
This conversation is making me very sad, especially because I just heard from two separate people today. One of them a cook or a chef, which he wasn't saying he was going to purchase it. Thank God. I take that back. I need to add, because this is the person I was talking to, Devin at Brick and Barrel. I don't know if you probably haven't been out there. Devin out at Brick and Barrel is really talented. I'd say top 5 like chef talented restaurants. He just does. Not everything's is a home run in terms of what he's putting on the menu, but he's doing really interesting food. He's constantly changing it up. He's constantly talking about how excited he is about a dish. I was just out there today to do pictures for them, and everything's just, he's really, really talented. But so he was telling me about this, and then a food purveyor was telling me about this new kind of beef that's available.
I don't know what.
That is ungraded and injected with water, salt, and fat of some sort to make it more appealing and appetizing. And Devin was telling me his supplier was telling them that they're selling it like wildfire to golf courses who are doing like steak bakes. And then the other food purveyor was telling me that it's this new innovative product that's coming out on the market, and you can buy it for such little money and it tastes good. And I'm like, oh dear God, what is happening to our food?
That's a whole nother question that is also will make you sad.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because that's Ugh.
I thought we were trying to, I mean, as humans, I thought we were getting back into like wanting to know where food's coming from and what it is. I feel like that's a step in the wrong direction.
I said, like, when when everything was locked down, that COVID was either going to pull everybody back closer to Mayberry, or it was going to drive us so much further into the future. And I feel like that's what we're doing. I mean, let's get out of the food industry for a minute. I mean, I'm part of the problem because I just bought an Oculus VR headset and I'm now obsessed with it. And I'm now doing so many different things with it.
Like what?
Well, I'm now working out at home every night with it.
Okay, well then that's good.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I'll have to show you some of the videos that my wife has taken of me.
No, they're great. We had a VR set at some point, and no, we actually have the Oculus, I think.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Honestly, when we bought it, I was like, Alex, like, why are we? The last time we bought a VR, we like used it for like 2 weeks, and then it just never left the closet.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with this one.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
but they're fun.
Yeah.
I just always forget to throw. I don't know. I just forget about it.
I went in there into Horizon Worlds and created an Eat Local New York world, and I'm going to try to. The hope is to find. I know one person that has a VR headset that's like into it that I want to have them on as a guest, and my hope is to go in there and start to record like a show or some version of the podcast in that space, whether we're in there playing like putt-putt golf together and recording it, or just in there hanging out in like the Eat Local New York world, which really all you can do right now is play cornhole in there.
That's fun though.
But just figure out a way to do it. I mean, there's like a professional comedians who in the VR chat worlds like space, there are virtual comedy clubs where you can go in there and in front of hundreds of people get up and do an open mic set for comedy. I mean, it's wild the things that you can do in there. So having said all of that, I know that I'm part of the problem because I'm furthering
We're all part of the problem,
advance
to be honest.
of technology. And eventually we're just going to be growing everything, I'm sure, in some warehouse of what we eat. But yeah, it was just really depressing to hear these people tell me about this. Like, you don't even have to grade the beef anymore. You can just inject it with salt and water and fat.
But the growing things in warehouses doesn't have to be bad. I mean, there's this local, do you know about Good Healthy? The local green, they grow greens.
Do they just do microgreens?
Microgreens and like baby kale.
Okay,
baby. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about them, but I've seen
They grow like indoors, I believe.
Yeah.
We get them at A Mano. And their stuff is phenomenal.
Yeah. Microgreens, I've seen a lot of stuff about the warehouses
Yeah.
of, yeah, for sure.
And they grow like, I mean, it's not microgreens, but they do like baby greens.
Okay.
They do like arugula.
Oh, cool.
Their arugula's so good. I
Yeah.
love greens, obviously.
Yeah.
Kale.
I think that's fine. That's fine to a certain extent. It's, well, you know, if down the road we start to get our chicken and our beef from,
Yeah.
you know, and when it's not just the Beyond stuff, but it's actual beef, that's,
There's a lot of people I feel like are going the opposite way as well,
yeah.
trying to get more understanding of where our food comes from.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a little bit of a different thing here as well, like compared to Philly. I feel like, I don't know if it's just maybe some of our customer base, but like when we do whole fish,
Yeah.
a lot of them want the heads removed
Oh, really?
before bringing it out to the table, which is fine.
Yeah.
No problem doing it. I know it's just the things that I maybe believe in, and I was a vegetarian for a while, but I just think that if you don't want to see the head, like, then maybe don't eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, maybe understand where your food's coming from. Like, if that bothers you, then shouldn't the eating of the fish also bother you?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. We had backyard chickens for about a year. And then
Oh, you gave us some eggs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I loved having them. I just felt bad because we live in the city and we had them. I had a chicken run for them that they could hang out in outside that was completely safe. So birds and stuff and skunks weren't going to come in and get them at night or during the day. And we have this big yard for where we live. For the north side, it's a big yard. So if I was home during the day, I'd let them out, and they loved it. But every time I would leave for work in the morning or come home at night, they would run to the gate wanting me to let them out. And so I felt too bad after a while. So we wound up giving them to a friend who has a farm up in Central Square. But there is no way in hell that I don't think there's any way that I could have done this. Maybe if I had to. I don't think I could have killed one of those chickens to eat it. I'm pretty sure I couldn't have done that.
I know.
And so maybe I shouldn't have been maybe, with that.
I know. After me saying that, I'm like, I don't know. But it's something I've always wanted to try it.
What? Butchering a chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Lucky 7,
I
I'm
do
sure, or
feel
whatever
like
they're
I do
called.
feel like if I eat it, I should be able to kill it.
Yeah.
And I might cry, but that's okay.
It's just there. Like we had, over the summer we had squirrels that were getting in our eaves in our house, and so I put out traps and caught them. And my wife called me one day when I was at work, and she said, "Hey, you caught one of the squirrels, and now it's freaking out on the back porch. It's in this cage, and now our dog Buddy is freaking out. So you have to come home and do something about it." So I'm like, "Oh well, if I just let it go, it's just going to go right back into the eave. So what the hell am I going to do with this thing?" I was thinking, all right, maybe I'll take it to I'll drive it to a park and let it go there. And then I'm thinking, but what if once I open this cage up, it attacks me? So as I'm going through all of the things that I could do, I called my dad. I was like, "Hey, what do I do with this?" And his response was, "Just bring it over to my house. I'll take care of it." And they live 10 minutes away. So I go over there. I go in the backyard. I've got the squirrel that I just transported in this cage over to my parents' house. I hand it to my dad. He walks it into the back and dumps it into a bucket of water and drowns the thing. And that's my grandfather was the same way. That's what you do with these things. And I'm sitting there what in the hell are you doing to the squirrel?
I know, we're not used, like, how,
Yeah.
we're just not used to it.
I know, it's strange.
One of my friends from boarding school, she's from Nigeria, and she told me, she was like, her grandmother, when she was a kid,
Yeah.
made her kill a chicken. Like, she was really young. And, I mean, since then, she's been freaked out.
Yeah.
She wasn't convinced by it, but she was like, that, she made me do it. Like,
Yeah.
I had to do it at a very young age.
Yeah.
When I worked at the farm, I had my best friend. She was from Mexico. She lives back in Mexico now. But she would take, speaking of chicken, so people would buy baby chicks from us.
Okay.
And they weren't always sexed
Yeah.
properly.
Right.
So if people ended up with a rooster, they would bring it back in
really?
exchange for chicken. And we had no use for a rooster. We couldn't have a rooster.
Yeah.
So she would take it home and cook it usually for us for lunch the next day. But I was always like, I want to come home and like do it, but I never did.
Hopefully once that
But I'd
rooster,
always eat it the next day.
hopefully
so
once
it
it
was
matured
delicious.
a little bit. Hopefully that one was like a baby.
It was like an adult. Yeah.
Because we had one, I got our chicks. We got 10 of them, and one of them wound up being a rooster. And I just found somebody in Phoenix that had a farm, and they took it off our hands. You know, luckily before it started crowing, because that would have really sucked. But you could tell from its tail feathers and the color that it was going to be that it was a rooster. So, yeah. I don't know. I didn't grow up like hunting or anything like that. My dad wasn't really a big, he'd just gone hunting before, but he wasn't like really a big deer hunter or anything. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, now I eat a lot of venison because Alex's brother Noah hunts.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
And I profit from that. So that's great.
I listen to Joe Rogan podcast all the time, and he's always talking about like going to Colorado or wherever and going on these elk hunts, and then he has food to feed his family for the rest of the year. And I hear those things, and I watch like the Meat Eater show on Netflix, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to only eat things that I can grow or I can make with my hands. And then, life doesn't allow for any of that. And then the real world sets in.
I mean, the extreme of it is insanely tricky. There's a woman who I think it was like Canada, who did a documentary about only for a year.
Mm-hmm.
She fed her entire family with only stuff that they killed, they grew, or like their neighbors grew.
Yeah.
She couldn't eat salt. No sugar. I mean, and they were up in Canada.
Yeah.
So she said the 3 months out of the year really was all they had to preserve everything. And half the documentary was just their kids being like, "This is like, I don't want to eat any of this. It's disgusting." Because nothing is salt. I mean, salt.
Right.
You lack salt. I mean,
Yeah.
at least in Syracuse, if you did that, you could have salt.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right. Yeah. There was somebody who had that same philosophy, but they only did it pertaining to like things they shouldn't have. So like sweets, bread, all that kind of stuff. If they didn't make it themselves, then they wouldn't eat it. So they would only have bread if they made it. They would only have ice cream if they made it. And this person lost a bunch of weight and was healthier as a result because they didn't eat it all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I think that, it's definitely environmentally based. My sister-in-law and her husband, they live up in Boonville, and, Boonville's, an hour and a half northeast and at the base of the Adirondacks, and everybody up there hunts, and, it's a small town. But they have this gorgeous home and like this lots of land, and especially they'll grow they've done like beans, or this past year they did pumpkins. They'll grow different crops pretty like, I don't know, 50 to 100 yards off their back deck. And part of it is for them, part of it's for deer. then when it's deer season, they just wait for the deer to walk over. And so she got a pretty big buck 2 years ago, and just right out of her back, saw it walk in and grabbed her gun and went out there. And, we went up like a month later, or a couple months later, and my brother-in-law had venison jerky that he sent us home with, like 5 pounds of it. It was amazing. So I guess maybe I need to just go hang out with my sister-in-law more often, and when it's deer season, and kind of get used to it. Get into the swing of it. But I think it's environment. I always say to my wife that I want to live in the country. We desperately want to get out of the city, and so I'm like, let's move to Boonville. That'll be great. And she's always saying, there's no way in hell, with how busy I stay now, that I could do something like live in Boonville. But I feel like I would just become that person. I just become the lumberjack who shoots deer off my back porch.
Is that what you want to become?
I don't know if that's what I necessarily want to become. I want to become a lot of things. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is a
I
problem.
want to live in Hawaii and travel Europe and, be a lumberjack. And I want to do all of these things that the realization that it's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to live all those different lives. Hasn't set in
Maybe
yet.
some will.
Yeah.
Have to do it.
Yeah. Maybe one of those things. Yeah. Where do you think food is, where do you think restaurants and food and consumers and eating habits and all that kind of stuff is going? Like, have you noticed a big shift in Syracuse in the 3 years that you've been here and at A Mano?
Yeah, I've noticed a shift. Definitely downtown, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot has opened. I just don't think the customers are there.
Yeah.
For it to really continue much more.
Mm-hmm.
They just still kind of want what they want. There's definitely places for A Mano, for Eden, for St. Urban, but I don't think there's a lot of room for much more of that.
Yeah.
And I don't see, it's a young city, but I'm not sure that's even what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like in Philly, so you go out in Philly. Sorry, I keep using Philly as an example. That's it's my city. But you go out in Philly and you go to these restaurants and they're packed full of young, early 30s, late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do with their disposable income. They eat.
Yeah.
They go try new places, or out eating, they're out drinking, that's what they want.
Right.
They value that higher than the consumers here do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what drives the food scene in Philly. I just don't think that's what's going to drive it's not going to drive the food scene in Syracuse that far.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it ever will. Or I wonder if it's supposed to even.
So, take like Alex as an example. Mm. He is a chef. He was interested in food, so he moved somewhere where that was available.
Yeah.
He moved somewhere where you could go out and 2 steps out of your house, there's this unique, different Asian noodle place. There's this right next to our last apartment, there was like a phenomenal, we're not vegan, but a phenomenal vegan pizza and donut place. There was a fried chicken donut place this half a block this way.
Yeah.
You can work for great chefs. He moved there for that.
Right.
And I think that's might be what slows down Syracuse a little bit too, is those people might be moving somewhere where they can find that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you keep those people here?
I know.
So that's the real question.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not even bring the people here. How do you keep those people here? Like OCC, they have a good culinary program, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep the people who graduate from there, how do you keep them here to work?
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
glad I finally had you on.
Yeah.
It was fun. Maybe we'll have to have you and Alex on together at some time. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
In March, we're all going to Philly. That's going to be a blast.
That will be fun. Oh, we're gonna have fun.
Yeah. So I need you to pick, like, choose like 3, maybe if we like stay overnight, maybe more, definitely more, but at the very least, like 3 to 4 spots for us to go to while we're there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that should be fun. It depends. So when are we planning on going?
So early March, I think.
Early March. Okay. Because wonder if that might align with. So Alex's and our like best friend is opening. He's the head chef for Mark Vetri for his new restaurant.
Oh, cool.
So and they should be opening around then. So we might be able to make it
Oh,
for like
really?
their opening.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be an interesting one.
Yeah.
We definitely have already been thinking about some places.
Oh, cool. All right.
And they're
Sweet.
doing the whole like you gotta do the really late night thing too.
Yeah.
Like the late night Chinatown and late night like 3
Yeah,
in the
so
morning,
we definitely
like,
have to
drinking,
stay
like,
overnight. Yeah.
Maybe drinking a little too much at 3 o'clock in the morning eating Chinese food.
Oh,
I
that's
think
gonna be
Alex
fun.
did that to Anthony once. He still talks about it. They destroyed him.
Oh, shit. Well, cool. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.